You're listening to HerbMentor Radio by Learning Herbs. I'm Kimberly Gallagher.
And I'm Mimi Prunella. We're continuing our journey through the world of herbalism, following the path outlined in my book, National Geographic Herbal. And this month we step into Chapter 3, Apothecary Herbalism. Herbalists take great pride in honing their medicine-making skills and assembling their herbal crafts into forms that can be easily dispensed for those in need. An herbal apothecary can range from a single pantry to an inviting storefront.
And we are so excited to welcome Mary Colvin to guide us into this deeply practical and meaningful aspect of herbalism. Mary Colvin is a registered herbalist, mentor, formulator, and herbal educator with over 17 years of experience in the herbal community. And she is the author of The Herbalist's Guide, How to Build and Use Your Own Apothecary. She is the founder of Ancestral Herbology, located in Wakeman, Ohio, one of the formulators for Sprig's Life, and the host of Herbology Talk podcast. Mary stewards woodlands, prairie land, and wetlands, which are home to hundreds of medicinal plants that she studies, connects to, and sustainably harvests from. Mary, welcome to HerbMentor Radio.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Hi,
Oh, so good. Yeah. Go ahead, Mimi.
Hi, Mary. It's so great having you here, and I'm so happy that we get to share you with our listeners. I would love to begin with your book, and I have it.
Sure.
I have it here.
Yay.
The Herbalist Guide, How to Build and Use Your Own Apothecary. And it's
Yes.
Skyhorse Publishing. And I've read this book cover to cover. In fact, I wrote a foreword for it.
Yes, you did.
It's a book that I often recommend for students who are learning apothecary building skills and medicine making skills. And it just feels so approachable. It feels so grounded in real practice. I'm curious, who did you write this book for? What were you seeing either in your clients or in the herbal community that made you feel like this was the book that you need to exist right now?
Well, I really wanted this for beginner to intermediate students and mainly for those that chose to study at home. I've had the opportunity to learn in both a 2-year class setting as well as self-study myself. And I really found that there's different needs for those self-study students. Number one, I found that people study at home just don't have the guidance that you would in a structured classroom. So I wanted to provide that guidance and give them that step-by-step training. The second thing is that there's just so much information out there. And there's so many great books in herbalism, but the problem is when they're first beginning and getting started, you don't know where to go, what to learn first. So you become overwhelmed really quick. So I wanted to help them and not become overwhelmed by giving them those steps. Third, one of the things that self-study students are really good at is reading and, going to those, maybe the webinars, watching things, but they're doing a lot of reading. They're not doing a lot of experimenting. They're
Mm-hmm.
not getting that firsthand knowledge. And I really wanted to include that in my book. And that's why I included the exercises, all the hands-on training exercises that are in there. And they're not just making formulas and making, herbal preparations. It's really helping you to understand the information that's given as well. And then finally, I've always had students come up to me and said, what, books do you recommend for beginners? And I really never knew what to say because there's so many again. But you have to be familiar with every single one. And I didn't want to give them a list of 10 different books that they have to go get. So now I get to say, here, start here,
Mm.
because I
Mhm.
have all the steps to step them through. They have the exercises to work with the herbs. And then there's also resources in there.
Mm. Wow, it sounds like such a fantastic resource. I love that you include the hands-on part. That's
Mhm.
been so important at learning herbs too, is to get people out and like harvesting things and bringing them in and making things. And
Mhm.
as you say, that's when you really begin to learn, is when you start, yeah,
Absolutely.
hands-on making things and bringing it into your
Mhm.
Yeah.
kitchen and into your body. So yeah, that's really beautiful. I've got to get my hands on this book. So
Oh, thank you.
I don't have a copy yet. Yeah. So how about let's just kind of step into the apothecary itself. Can you like walk us into your space and tell us about how it feels to be in there? Like what do you see and smell, and how do you relate to that
Yeah.
place as a place of practice, not just
Mhm.
storage?
Oh, for sure. When I have my clients first walk in, because I do have a separate area when we built the house that I wanted to have just devoted to my business. And so when they walk in, they come in, see the calming colors. I have like
Mm.
teal and lavender and some blue. And then there might be some calming scents. I might have right before they come in some essential oil of lavender going or chamomile, just so they have something nice to smell. Or, sometimes I am actively using my apothecary, so it can smell of many different types of herbs. But I really try not to do any garlic oil before they come in. Then it just permeates the whole place. But yeah, so there's different herbal blends too I might use, that they can smell. When you look off to the right when you come in, there's a small table and some really comfortable high back chairs that they can sit at. And this is where I see my clients and we hold the consultations. And when you look to the left, there's a very cozy little corner with a bookshelf, and it has about it's over 150 books. I know it's probably more than that because I keep purchasing books. So there's that, and then there's a wingback chair, a really cozy area with the little ottoman. It's a fuzzy white ottoman that they sit in, and I crochet. So I have a crochet blanket sitting there. So if anybody wanted to cover up and read, they could do that. There's a lamp on a little table sitting beside that with some books also. And when you look directly ahead, then I have my kitchen area. And in front of that is an island. It's like a turquoise island. And I usually reserve that for like seasonal decorations or things that make me happy. Right now, I have a little girl gnome. It has a white pigtail with pink ribbons, and it has a little floral dress on, and I love gnomes. So that makes me smile when I see it. And then next to it is a pink Gerber daisy, and on the other side I have some purple tulips, and then some purple, pink, and white hyacinth in a pot
Hmm.
because it's Easter, so they had a lot of those for sale at the store, and I'm like, I have to have those. And then I have some of my Sprig's Life, displayed on there if my clients want to look at those too. The cupboards are kind of like reminiscent of bark in that
Mm.
color. And I really love bringing the outside in, so I wanted that feeling also when they came in. And I have in all the cupboards, so I have the Lazy Susan has all of my tinctures and they're alphabetized. I have above that in the corner cabinet are all of my teacups and teapots and herbal blends, that I want to put together, some infusions. I have a floral essence cabinet, and then I have another cabinet that might have some essential oils and the beeswax and things to make cosmetics and, different herbal preparations. And then below are like the alcohol and, the menstruums that I need and the pots and pans. And so I have a place for everything in there.
Aw.
Um, and then I have two rooms that are off of the main room, and one is the walk-in closet where I have all my herbs and my business items as well. And then I have the full bathroom here for the clients to use. So that's just kind of a walk through
Oh,
my apothecary.
Mm.
Um, as for me, it's definitely not a place of storage. It is my office,
yeah.
not just my apothecary, and I feel that it's for me a contemplation spot,
Mm.
a place for me to be creative and for me to relax too.
Mm.
I do my writing here. I do my creating formulas here. So this is my spot in the home to get away.
Mm,
And for my clients, I really feel it's a place of
mhm,
safety and a place that they can be heard. And also, I never rush my clients. So, they have time to sit down and discuss things and put their custom formulas together. So they're not rushed out of here. So it's a place for them to unwind as well.
mm.
Mm. Wow, I
Wow.
can just really feel it. Like your description is
Mhm,
amazing.
mhm,
It's like I felt like I just
Thank
was
you.
walking into this beautiful
mhm,
place to be held. And oh,
mhm,
yeah, thank
mhm.
you for that description.
Yeah, Mary, you are
Absolutely.
living the herbalist dream there, and it's so visceral with everything from the fuzzy ottoman to the purple hyacinths and the smells of lavender. I'm squeezed in here into my small house. I've got apothecary in the cabinets, apothecary on every shelf in every room. My husband cannot wait for me to like get my she shed so I could take all my herbal stuff out there and all my teapots and
Yes.
teacups. But I love that. I love that you really gave me a vision, to dream on. And I love that your
Mhm.
clients have just such a beautiful space to feel safe and take in the herbs. So. But for many listeners, I imagine, especially beginners, the whole idea of even building an apothecary must feel really overwhelming. Like maybe they feel like they need to build everything at once. And I'm sure it didn't take, I'm sure you didn't jump right to this dream apothecary just like that. You probably, had to progress
Absolutely
toward
not.
that. How would you guide students in building their apothecary in a way that feels practical and meaningful? Where to begin and how do they know what's enough and, just where to go.
Yeah. Well, first, I got to say that every apothecary is going to be different for everybody. It's never going to be the same. And, as far as it can be meaningful different ways to different people too. So I first guide my students to kind of build it according to their specific needs. Maybe they're just wanting a small, space for their family, to be able to take care of their family. Maybe they are looking at being a clinical herbalist. Then they might want to start slow and start building and adding on to that. Um, but it's really specific to their needs, the plants that they have growing around them as
Mm,
well. And then also, how much time do they have to put into it?
Mm.
And like you said, not everybody can just build it all at once. And trust me, I have not, it's taken me years to get to this part too. When I first started 17, 18 years ago, something like that, I was in my dining room, and
yeah.
I didn't have, I had a little shelf, that I started. So this has been years in the making, and this has been my dream as well,
Mm.
and I just have a lovely husband that's helped me find that dream basically. But so when I'm talking about the plants, what kind of plants around you are, I'm speaking about biodiversity. And, the first place that they want to take a look at is what is growing around you. Um, what do you want to, connect with? Which herbs do you want to have in your apothecary? I also start off in the book just saying, if you write down all the different types of healthful, situations that you might have that might come up that you would want to, turn to herbs for, that might be a good starting place also, to determine what herbs you want to have and what
Mm,
type of herbal preparations that you want to have. But um, the next thing for me is sustainability too. So when you're talking about a meaningful way, for me, sustainability means a lot. That's it's part of me. And I have 9 acres here, and there's a lot of herbs that are at risk here as well. And because you have a botanical sanctuary there too. But I want to protect them. I have invasive plants here, so I want to help the ecosystem as well. So determining what herbs I have in my apothecary is going to be different, depending on the area. But I might want to use more of the invasive plants, because I want to slow their spread, or I don't want to use so much of the herbs that are at risk. I might want to find alternative herbs or maybe grow them. in my own garden, not take them from the wild. So sustainability is something for me that's meaningful. The other thing you talked about practicality, and I think that's a really good thing to consider when you're making your own and putting your own apothecary together. Let's take Solomon's seal, for example. Um, is it practical to spend $100 a pound every time you use it? Or is it more practical to try growing it yourself if you have the space? So, finances is something that you want to consider. The other is convenience too. So, do you want to prepare? Is it more practical to have all the herbal formulas like already prepared and all you have to do is grab them? Or is that something that you want to do on the go when you need them and put them together at that time? One of the reasons why I have so many tinctures and then I also have bulk herbs is because I want that choice. And do I want something that's already prepared or do I want to turn around and make it in an infusion or decoction or, of that sort? So I think everybody's goal for their own apothecary is going to be different as well. Like we talked about. And, I was just telling Mimi the other day, and I don't remember if you remember me telling you this, but um, she is so good at taking what she forages and turning it into this beautiful plate and this beautiful cuisine, and she's so talented in that way. That's not my thing. I'm talented at crocheting and I'm talented at creating gardens and, creating formulas, but I just want to be able to take what I forage and throw it in some salad or a smoothie and I'm good. You turn it into this masterpiece, right?
Aw.
And it's not that you're better or I'm better, at herbalism, we just have a different focus within herbalism. And that's the beauty of being an herbalist, I think. And, so what you find is your focus and your passion is going to be different than somebody else. And that's okay. And your apothecary is going to, appeal to that as well.
Oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Like, and we don't have to do everything as herbalists, right? Like follow our own inspiration and bring that into our practice and into how we create our space. And I really hear like in what you're sharing, like how your values are really tied into the apothecary that you've created. And I loved that in the description, there's plenty of time for them to settle in and feel comfortable, and it just clearly reflects your desire to really nourish and nurture the people that come into you right from the moment they step into that apothecary. And then as you start talking about the plants and your desire to be sustainable in your practice and really use the herbs that are growing around you. And yeah, so I love that we're just giving people permission to stream into what are your values and how is that going to be reflected in the apothecary that you create. And what are you creating the apothecary for? Is it for your family? Is it for friends? Is it for your community? And yeah, so beautiful thoughts about what to think about as you're getting started. And I wonder.
I think
Oh, go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
just I thought it was funny when what part of that question is when is it enough?
Mm.
I don't think it's ever enough. And I think we're always going to be adding, right? Things change too as time goes on. Your needs change and, your finances might change and you might add some different herbs into it. So I think the word enough and complete are two different things. So I think that your apothecary is complete when it can sustain your needs, right? And you could do that with 5 herbs, you could do that with 100 herbs, right? It doesn't matter, but you're always going to find a new herb that you're interested in learning more about. I haven't been able to stop doing that. I don't know about you, but there's always, gosh, even just walking out in the woods, I always find a different plant that I'm like, how did I miss this? And what is this? And I don't know the name. And now I'm driven on. I have to find out what it is and find out more information about it. But yeah, so I think complete and enough are two different things. I think it's enough when you decide, but it's going to change. So is it really enough? With what you have completed at the time, I
Mhm.
guess.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, it's one of the things
Yeah.
I love about herbalism is it's just an endless arena for learning, right? We're continually finding new things and learning about new plants and
Oh,
learning more
yeah.
about the plants that we already know and love. And yeah, so it's like we're in a continual learning profession. So
It is
yeah.
so true. I feel like the more even, the more we learn about plants, the more we know our herbalism, the more challenges we have to learn more. It's like a constant evolution.
Wow, Mimi, I'm really enjoying this conversation with Mary. She's such a wealth of knowledge and she seems like such a beautiful mentor for people who are starting out. And it really makes me think about Herb Mentor, all the things that she's saying. This is our membership site at Learning Herbs. It's a place where we gather as a community to learn about all different herbal things, and it just hits so many of the things that Mary was talking about.
I agree, Kimberly. I think it's just such a beautiful place for aspiring herbalists and for people who want to learn more about herbs. There's different voices there, there's different teachers, challenges for those hands on experiences, mentoring. You can learn with Kimberly, you can learn with Mimi. We have different meetups, just so much going on there to guide that herbal experience.
Yeah, and as a community, we study one herb per month and take a deep dive into that herb. So, as we're talking about all the different ways that one single herb can help you, we take that deep dive into the herbs, and then you can really follow your inspiration. And that's one of the things Mary is really talking about in this interview too, like what's lighting you up and what are your values as an herbalist. And so you can choose a course from our course library that's gonna inspire you in that moment and go down that path. And then if you have questions along the way, we have a whole forum where you can ask the question that's coming up. And Mimi's on there and I'm on there, and our friend Lee is also on answering your questions, so you have a place to get guidance anytime you need it.
It's such an interactive experience, and there's always a deal going on for those of you listening today on the podcast. You can head over to our YouTube page and look for the show notes. Look for the link to the discount in the description.
Now I think we should get back to our conversation with Mary.
Yeah, let's get back to Mary Colvin, everyone. And you've been doing this work for a long time, Mary. It sounds like you're giving us a glimpse of how things have evolved for your practice and your apothecary, and I just I love this concept of like moving toward simplicity or moving toward complexity or something else entirely. Like, how do you balance this? With the plants, with your day to day life, with how do you advise students to in their pursuit of herbalism and building their apothecary?
Yeah, and I this was a really great question. So I have to think about when I first started, and I went to a 2-year, the 2-year schooling when I first started, and they taught us in a way where they had their own formulas. So I learned how to take care of this situation with this formula. That's how I began my studies. Um, when I was done and we had to learn, like, we had to memorize. I'm not gonna say we had to know because we didn't have time to experiment with them really, but we had to memorize 100 different herbs and know their binomials and their actions and identify them. And but when I got back and I wanted to start my apothecary, it was okay, I need to have all his formulas for when these situations come up, and I need to make all these tinctures. And I was by no means an expert at herbal, preparations at that time. But what I realized when I started doing my own self study afterwards, my apothecary started evolving, and it was no longer an herb for this situation. I learned about energetics, and I decided, I started making formulas for the individuals that come instead. So, you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about simplicity and complexity, and I think that my apothecary has both. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I talked about those individual herbs and, the tinctures, the simple tinctures that I have. So you can easily reach for a simple and just grab one herb, right? And that's the simplicity of herbalism
Mhm.
too. But you could also be a little more complex and put together your own formulas based on the individual. And I do that with my clients, creating custom formulations. And I do that for the mass production with Sprig's Life also, for the public. So um, understanding, both is part of developing my apothecary, and it has evolved over
Mhm.
time for sure. And we were talking about it started off in my dining room, and eventually, I
Mhm.
was able to build a house into it. But it was simple to begin with, I think, and it's become more complex. But it can also offer the simplicity, if that makes sense.
I just love I love how you said that, you know, most people are building their apothecary into their house, and you're like, "I'm building my house into my apothecary." That is the dream. The
Yeah,
dream
that
continues.
that was, we originally had to move, so I took
Mhm.
over. He wasn't too happy, but, when at our other house, we had the garage, and behind there was, an old workshop that they used to work on cars with and had the car lift and everything, and it had a separate entrance to it, so I told him I needed to take over that. And your tools need to get out of there and put them in the garage because I need that as my office. So we did that, and he was so good about it. But we built a bathroom onto there, and we made that into my office, and that was going to be it. But then we had a natural gas pipeline come through, and it was like a 36-inch diameter pipeline, and it took out my orchard. And it was 300 feet from the house. And I said, I'm not living here. I can't. I just,
Mhm.
I can't do it. And
Mhm.
so we went looking, and we couldn't find a spot that had like a mother-in-law suite, or a she shed, that had a separate building, right? That I could have my office in. And we're getting older, and we didn't want 2 floors, but I definitely wanted some land. And we just came upon this. And because we couldn't find a house with what we wanted, we had to build. And, luckily that was before COVID. And before the prices were skyrocketing. And
Yes. Yes.
I
Good
was
timing.
very good
Yes.
timing because I got to spend the, COVID here on the 9 acres with the woods, and be here with the
Mhm.
plants. And so, yes, this is my dream. And, I hope everybody can get to their dream of what they see their own apothecary,
Yes.
become.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We're
Mhm.
wishing that for all of you listeners
absolutely.
out there. Yeah, may you have your herbal apothecary dream.
Yes, I love that.
Yes. Now, as you're like advising people, as they're going through this process, can you talk a little bit more about, how you help them learn through experience and not just
Yeah.
intellectually and kind of I'm curious about like your journey with beginning to formulate and how you help people learn to do that, to put the herbs together in a way that will help somebody and do you help them find different teachers or mentors or community? Just yeah, what's your
Yeah.
mentoring process?
Well, when I first start off, I say the first thing that they really need to do, obviously, if they're reading about the plants, they need to connect to the plants, and they need to experience the plants too. Interesting that you asked about the formulating. I am writing my next book. It is about formulating and the skills that they're going to need. But for right now, I try to let my students know that they got to start there. They got to start with the plants because I think plants are the best teachers, aren't they? I
Mhm.
mean, they really are. And it's when I connect to plants, I can use all of my senses. We call that organoleptics. And I'm using
Mm.
sight and hearing and taste and feeling them, and just sitting with the plant, right? And
Mhm.
what's around the plant, what kind of an environment is the plant in. And I have all these journals that I use. And um, one of them is like their locations on the property or where I find them. Another one could be me sitting down, tasting it, and feeling where it goes in my body, and writing down what kind of medicinal actions I think that herb has. With this type of connection, I'm building a relationship with the plant as well. And this is one where, you know, when you connect to a plant and you have experience with them, you don't have to go look up the plant all the time and look up what does it do, what parts, or what does the taste like again, what are the energetics. You're going to know, and you need to trust that
Mhm.
information. And when somebody says, well, I've never heard this plant do that, that I trust the information I get, so I know that that plant does that. And I'm trying to share some of my experiences with other people as well.
Mm,
Mhm.
beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. We kind of forget sometimes in all of the scientific information that's out there that, we have these fingers and this nose and these
Mm,
ways of like experiencing. We taste things, we take it into our body, and like,
mhm,
yeah, that's
mhm,
all trustworthy information,
mhm.
right?
And of course, I research the herbs, and I think everybody needs
Yes.
to research the herbs too, and don't just
Of
taste,
course.
without knowing if it's edible or, if it's safe. But I do experiments with them too.
Mm,
And I think everybody needs to gain experience. They need to experiment with the herbs and not
mhm,
just
Mhm,
the different types of herbal preparations, but maybe I'll bring back Solomon seal, and I've done some testing and experimenting on my own where I'm like, okay, I want to try with 75% alcohol. I want to try with 50% alcohol. And, so the different
mhm.
percentage of the alcohol content, maybe fresh or dried. Are you experimenting, making a tincture with both of those? You can read that lemon balm is best when used fresh, but have you tried it dried? Have you
mhm,
actually
mhm,
felt what it
Mhm,
does in your body? Because I haven't seen much of a difference.
mhm, mhm.
So these are things that through your experience, and you
mhm.
don't have to question. And that's what's great about, developing a relationship with them.
Mhm, mhm. I really
Yeah.
love that you're encouraging a relationship with plants, to really observe an image of you out in the woods with your journals, really in this process of observation and, just the way you bring the sensory experience, not only to your relationship with plants, but to your apothecary. We're big fans of the herbal sensory experience here. We recently did a podcast with Kat Meyer back, I think that aired in March. And it's just such a beautiful way to know herbs. Even you mentioned the energetics of herbalism. So I really love that you're bringing all that in. And I wanted to maybe switch gears a little bit because one thing I know about you, because you served as a board member on the American Herbalist Guild Board of Directors, and when you served, really, I really you were such a staunch advocate for self study, for students who self study, and for providing tools for students who self study. Not all students have access to herbal education right in their neighborhoods. Not everyone has the funding for or the time for a formal education process. And I know in your book, too, is somewhat geared to that audience, people who are in the process of self study. So I was hoping you can take us a little bit through that process or, just a little bit of maybe encouragement for those herbalists who are in that process of self study right now, maybe a little
Yeah.
validation.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. But when I like to encourage my students to see different types of teachers too and different mentors, not just, I'm not looking just for you to learn from me or just from, a school. I'd like to see like a variety. And when you're looking for mentors too, I really hope that you can find one that you connect with because there's so many different types of herbalists out there, and you want to be free and you want to be able to be free to be the type of herbalist you want to be, not
Mhm.
necessarily what that mentor is expecting you to be. So I do encourage goal setting for my clients as well, or not just my clients but my students as well, um, to decide on what type of herbalist they want to be, and what, as well as what kind of apothecary they want to create. But where do they see themselves in 5 years, and what type of training would they like to see? And that's kind of how I gravitate toward that. And you remember I did a webinar called Navigating the Study of Herbalism, and that's kind of a lot of where that came from too. So I really encourage them to find, even go to herbal conferences, some different herbal conferences around the area, and meet other herbalists. Um, find some different passions within herbalism, and find those mentors. But I think it's just a matter of finding different resources too, not just those books, as you're
Mhm.
self-studying. You just have to find a variety of different trainings, whether it's webinars and, or maybe you want to take a course. I actually took a course in, nutritional therapy, so, and just wanted to add that as a background to what I do, as a clinical herbalist. But you might want to learn a little bit more about traditional Chinese medicine or traditional Ayurvedic medicine, wherever your passions take you. And you'll find those teachers, you'll find those other herbalists at some of those conferences or symposiums. And I just think feeling like you're part of a community
Mhm.
and becoming that community is a big part of your journey in learning, herbalism. So I encourage interaction as well.
So good.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and with all of the information that's out there now, not all of it is super grounded information. So I wonder, like, do you work with people on discernment? Like, how do you help
mm,
them figure out, what to use, how to trust,
Oh, so this is a big deal to me because before my book was published, I was told to go on TikTok, and I knew nothing about TikTok. And I was like, I'm not dancing, okay? But I get on there, they're like, just be yourself. And I started a training in herbalism series, where I was just trying to talk them through some of those steps before my book was published too. And I went from 0 to 35,000 followers in a very short amount of time, and it was a lot of people that are just getting into herbalism. And um, I talked about that guidance, and I think that social media is a big part. The reason why it's so popular is because people are looking for that guidance. But unfortunately, it could come from people who are not experienced, or it might come from some AI books, that they're researching. So I was a little appalled when I first got on TikTok. And I saw all the misinformation and the over dramatization of certain, actions of plants. And I really thought, in order for people to find trusted information and, that discernment, I really need to put some research guidelines together. And I did that, and I put those in my book. It really helps you to see red flags, just like, when you go to Amazon and you see all these beautiful books and they look like great herbal remedy books, but if you do follow those research guidelines, you start researching that person. Oh, everything comes up the book. I can't find any other information about this person, or you really can't find that it's a real person at all. That's probably an AI book. And they would know that if they followed some of those, research guidelines. Because what did they say? There is 82% of herbal remedy books on Amazon are AI right now. That is huge.
Wow.
That
Oh
is
my gosh.
huge. And that's a little concerning, and especially people who are just learning, getting into herbalism. So what if they find conflicting information also? How do you go about that? You have to go through those research guidelines and research that person, research that school, research the herb that they're talking about, So it does come down to research, but knowing how to find trusted resources. And so I think that's one of the things. The other discernment that I think is through those connections too. Like I said, we were talking about working with plants, and you wouldn't have to look up that plant all the time, if you have that experience and you've connected to the plant. So that's another way to discern. Um, And I found some things out from plants that, just based on my experiences and my connections that you don't necessarily find in books, or you don't necessarily find elsewhere. And like I said, I was trying to share that, but I had one person that mentioned about my book that they loved that I wasn't regurgitating information
Mm.
out there. And that meant a lot to me, because that was my experience. I wasn't copying and pasting from other studies or from other websites, or, this was specifically my experience. But I also encourage people to go get their own experience. Don't just necessarily go by mine. And so that's another way to discern information too.
Yeah, like does it match with what you're finding in your own body and in your own life? Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that.
I love that too. So let's look at the other side of this. So let's say, okay, we've built our apothecary. It's constantly evolving. It's there. We've got my shelves here and my cabinets here, and I feel equipped. Now, what's the advice here? How do you encourage people to engage with their apothecary? Because you don't just build it and walk away. We need to be in a relationship with it as like almost like a living resource. Like, how do we engage? What's the plan here?
So I look at plants as living beings. So obviously my apothecary is full of living beings. And I really dislike when people say, I use this plant for this condition, or I use this plant. It just feels so disrespectful to me. And I like to say more, I'm working with this plant. I really strive hard to say I'm working with this plant. But, what we're saying is I'm developing a relationship with this plant, right? Just with your friends, if you don't reach out and you don't text and you don't call, you don't invite them to things. So you can start a relationship with somebody, but if you don't sustain it, if you don't actively stay involved, then you're not going to sustain that relationship. And I think it's the same with herbs. And so you have to keep going back to that herb as well and bringing it into your life and, working with it as part of, building that relationship with the apothecary and the plants. I think it's just consistent use and finding new ways to work with them too.
Yeah. Like every year they come back and it's like, oh, what are we going to do with calendula this year?
Absolutely.
Smart advice. That's really smart advice. Yes. Or even noticing if you've made too much. Like if you made like, half a gallon was like way overboard. And next time you're going to make like a small pint, and that's, get you through the year. So.
Yeah, I suggest start small until you know how much, you're going to be utilizing with your family, friends, or, for the public, whatever your needs are. You will get better at deciding how much you need. Yeah, I gotta say that my knees hurt after I am sitting on the ground picking the violets and and going on from. Because I know how much has to be in my apothecary, so I set out and I put aside time to get that amount here and work with it. Yeah.
Sometimes I love the harvesting so much that I'll just be out there like, yay, I'm picking herbs.
Oh, yeah.
It's so fun. And then you come home and you're like, oh my gosh,
Oh
I
my
gotta process all this. Like, what was I thinking?
Or growing. I've got like piles of peppermint, piles.
Oh.
Like, what am I going to do? I need more recipes.
For sure.
It's motivation to try something new.
It is. It is. Yeah.
I love that you brought up violets, because that is such a favorite for so many people, herbalists and non-herbalists alike. Violets are something that people recognize. They're in our yards. They draw us in. Violets are in your book. Violets are in both of my books. Such a common. But I believe we probably work with violets in different ways, because I come into the kitchen, and I Yeah, I do also make a salve, but I haven't I'm more on the culinary side of violets, and on the, every day let's drink it, and let's make syrups, and make pretty things with it. I'd be really curious how you work with violets, and if it's in your book, it's, something that we might go run and open to that section.
Oh, yes. I do have some formulas in there with violets as well. But one of those when I came to this land and, we built and moved in the winter. So come spring, I saw this carpet of purple and white. And then in the woods, there was yellow. And I'm like, I got to see what this is. They were all violets. I
Oh.
have so many beautiful violets. So I sit down and there was this huge patch in one area. So I just literally plopped down with my basket and, I'm picking, I do the flowers for some color. I like to make the syrup. I like to make jam when I have the time to do that.
Ooh.
Um, but I make a lot of homemade jams throughout the year, with my gardens and that too. But if I have the time, I'll do that. But I really pick most of it to make a fresh leaf and flower tincture. So I like to include both parts. I don't, and
Okay.
then I will make with just the flowers. I do flower essences. And
Mm.
I use them separately. The white and the blue flower are used separately for different emotions. I have like the white is to bring harmony to that warrior. So I'll make a flower essence with the white flower of the viola
Mm.
for that, and it kind of helps them to stay in the now and enjoy the blessings that are happening right now.
Mm.
The blue violet I use to help release anger and kind of a sweeten the sour and anger disposition, for somebody and kind of just bring peace to them. It helps lift their spirit as well. So I'll make my flower essences. And then I have to have plenty of dried flowers and leaves. And you have to make sure that you let them dry completely before you put them in the jar and seal it because they will mold because of that mucilage content in there. It's in both the flowers and the
Mm.
leaves. So make sure it's dried thoroughly. But you just don't know what it smells like when you open that up, come winter and the
Mm.
smell of those flowers, which is why I like to include, the flowers with it too. But um, I love making different infusions. One of my favorites is mixing it with either lavender or rose along with nettle. And it's just,
Wow.
yeah, I love the flavor. Well, rose, I love especially with nettle too, but throw in that violet and it's just wonderful. A support for the emotional heart as well as, it can have expectorant action. It can help relieve, some inflammation, and tension too. So, there's a respiratory formula in my book where I combine it with the marshmallow leaves and flowers, not the root. And I'm making the infusion. So I have the leaves and flowers of both the violet and the marshmallow plant. And then I have elder flowers in there. So that works
Mm.
more as a respiratory, especially for those dry coughs or, the irritated coughs that you have too. Yeah. So there's so
Mm.
many different ways. I mean, I do make the oil. I have to have the oil. There's
Mhm.
been times where I've broken out in hives, or, swelling of any sort. I use the oil for. I will combine it in different formulas too, but I like to put it with my cosmetics, making my lip balms with the violet oil. I'll put it with some of my face creams as well, to bring down inflammation and kind of soothe any kind of irritated skin. Um, I love it for tension headaches. So that's a great one. I'll use the tincture for that. Um, so I think of it as a nervine as well. It's not like a
Mhm.
strong nervine, but it does have some nervine actions as well as antispasmodic actions too. Um, and
Mm.
definitely anti-inflammatory. And I call it anti-phlogistic. So I learned that from Dr. Christopher's. So that's like an old term, the anti-phlogistic, because I hate saying anti, inflammatory because it can mean so many different things. But yeah,
Mhm.
so it is anti-phlogistic as well.
Mm.
Oh,
I can just
I
see you out there with in your lawn with the
with all those
violets, cutting
violets.
the leaves and the flowers, and you're probably probably a joyous day for you on violet harvesting.
Oh, just
Mm,
to be out there, yeah, amongst
mm-hmm,
in the environment, absolutely. Yeah.
mm,
I love how this speaks to also just like how few plants you really need to know, like the depth of, all the different things that violet can help us with. And yeah, just hearing like that list, I use the tincture for this and I use the oils. And yeah, it's amazing what we can do with just
mm-hmm,
one plant,
mm-hmm.
like, bring it in all these
Absolutely.
ways. So,
Yeah, and just like
Right.
what my book has like 35 different herbs, and you could easily, and I'm helping the reader to create their apothecary. If they follow every one of the exercises and the formulas that are in there, they'll have one ready, but they'll know how to use it too. But that's
Mm,
35 herbs, but you can have an apothecary with 10 herbs. You can have it with,
mm-hmm.
five. It's not how many you have, it's how many you know well,
yeah.
and be able to work with those plants for different situations.
Mm, mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
I love that. It's not how many you have, it's how many you know well. Mm-hmm,
All about the relationships.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hmm.
All right.
Well,
I've stunned you all. Okay.
It's so deep, but there's so much to violet that I was taking notes over here.
Oh,
Lymphatic,
oh, for
soothing
sure. I forgot to say
mucilage,
that. Yeah.
these colorful petals, and lung health and heart health, and uh, you know your infusions, and just opening that jar and smelling the sweet aromas. I'm excited about violets.
Yeah. Great. You have plenty of them down there, don't you?
I wouldn't say I have like a whole, the way you described that was just like a carpet of this violet purple, but I do have some great patches for sure. Yes, yes. I love working with violets too, and the kids love plucking violets too. Often this is one where you can kind of get the kids on task.
You know what's
yeah.
funny is
Give
I did have a neighbor come up to me, and they had at that time, it was really roughly moved in shortly after there was a young family that moved in next door, and she came to me and she says, "Ugh, the kids are coughing so bad. What can I do for them?" And she was really wanting to learn about herbalism too. And I first asked what kind of cough, because there's many different kinds, and to pick the
hmm
right herb, you got to have the right one to match the energetics. And she said it was a very dry cough. They're wheezing
hmm
that's really dry. And I said, okay, they were blooming at the time. So I told her to take the kids with them and actually pick the violets and the flowers and the leaves. And then I told her to make a tea with it, and that can be something that the kids can help you with, and, start teaching them a little bit of herbalism. And she did. And she
Mm.
was so glad the kids loved the flavor, and, their
Uh,
coughs were soothed, and yeah, they were able to cough some of that up. And it was a great experience for them. Yeah.
Oh,
that is
so good.
so sweet.
Yeah, when the kids like the
Yes.
taste of the
Oh
medicine,
yeah.
that's a game changer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know when we making herb fairies, we took the violet flowers and candied them, just
Yes.
dipping them in the
Ooh.
egg white and the sugar. So my kids always loved violets just because, they were this beautiful little candy that they could make. So
And I just got to
Mm.
say
yeah.
that I had all of those herb fairies for my children when they were
Oh,
younger,
how
and
exciting.
they absolutely loved it. So I had to let you know that. Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
Mm.
Yay. Uh, well, as we're kind of coming to a close here, I just wonder, like, you know, if you had someone who was right at the beginning of their herbal journey, what would be your first piece of guidance? And you have a beginner herbalist series, and what might help them take
Yeah.
that
Well,
step in?
first, I'd say get my book because that will help step you through. The
Mhm.
second thing
Mm-hmm.
is connect with those plants. Don't just read about them. You have to connect with them and gain some experience. And I say that because the Beginner Herbalist series is going to be starting online, and that's starting June 4th, and that's going to go through September. It is using my book as the textbook, but I go way beyond what's in the book because I was limited on so many words. You know that,
Right.
don't you know that, Mimi? But you can't put everything you want in there. One of the things that we talk about is connecting. There's a week about that, but they're going to gain experience with
Mm,
that too. I talk about botany, which I wasn't able to really put in there, and I talk about the
Mm.
plant families. I talk about safety with herbs. So this is more in-depth course. And of course, you have the guidance with me right there. I'm there to answer, ask your questions. I can help answer and help, guide you a little further. So that's coming up. If you want or somebody wants to sign up for that, spaces are available.
beautiful, beautiful.
Mhm.
I love that first step, just get in relationship with the plants,
Mhm.
go
Mhm.
out and touch them, smell them, bring them into your
Mhm.
kitchen, have an experience making something with them. Yeah.
Mhm.
And just continue to build it over time, one
Mhm.
simple thing at a time. That's been
Mhm.
definitely a mantra for us at Learning Herbs,
It is.
just
Mhm.
Take your
bring
time.
one thing
Mhm.
in,
Mhm.
keep it simple, follow
Mhm.
your inspiration. So, yeah, I love what
Mhm.
you're bringing, Mary. Thank
Yes.
you so
That
much.
mentorship and
Yeah.
that guidance is so important. It just sounds like it'd be such a fruitful summer experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for that offering and
Mhm.
bringing
You're
that to the
welcome.
world.
And so
Yeah.
if somebody is wanting to go to sign up for that beginner herbalist series, they can go to
Hmm.
my ancestralherbology.com. And there I have my events page that they can find more information about that beginner herbalist series and how to register for it. But I also have my blog, when I have time to put something on there, there'll be some there. But I have a backlog of all of the different blogs that I've done. And then, there's a contact page. There's also a more training page that they can go to, which takes them to a different website where it's all about training and resources. And then, of course, information about my book if they're interested.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
wonderful. And we'll have all that in the show notes too,
Thank
so
Mhm.
you can go
you.
back and find that website and connect more with Mary. So, yeah, Mary, thank you so much for inviting us into the apothecary and sharing all this grounded and really practical wisdom that you've gathered over these
Thank
years.
you. It's been
Mhm.
Yeah,
wonderful. Love
yeah.
talking with you.
Yes, thank you
Well,
so much, Mary. And for our listeners, join us next month. We'll be continuing along the herbal path. Next month is garden herbalism. So
ooh,
we're
I'm
so
excited.
excited to step from the kitchen into the apothecary and then out to the garden. So,
Yes.
yeah, we're really excited about this. And so, thank you again. And we'll be looking forward to updates from you as your course comes together.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep cultivating your relationship with the plants. Thank you for joining us on HerbMentor Radio. And don't forget to stick around for an herb note.
Welcome to Herb Notes. I'm Sorrel Hartford. Known for its sweet and bitter flavor, dill or Anethum graveolens is a quiet yet powerful medicinal ally in gardens and kitchens around the world. Let's dive into 3 medicinal uses of dill. 1. Dill for digestive functioning. Dill's minty, anise-like aroma indicates that this culinary herb offers more than just flavor. It also functions as a carminative, helping to dispel gas, ease cramping, and promote healthy digestion. Dill is particularly safe and effective for addressing digestive issues in children, and it has a long history of traditional use in alleviating infant colic. 2. Dill for breastfeeding parents. Beyond its colic relieving properties, dill offers benefits for both infant health and postpartum wellness. As a galactagogue, dill can promote lactation and can increase milk production in nursing parents. So, by consuming fresh dill, parents may simultaneously increase their milk flow and soothe their baby's colic, thanks to dill's ability to ease infant gas. 3. Dill for cholesterol and diabetes management. Dill can help balance blood sugar, making it a beneficial addition to diets aimed at reducing insulin resistance. Recent studies also suggest that dill can lower total cholesterol, LDL, and triglycerides. This delicious herb may be a great addition to treatments for high cholesterol or type 2 diabetes. And just a couple of contraindications to keep in mind. Dill is generally recognized as safe for consumption by the FDA, although large doses should be avoided during pregnancy. It's uncommon, but some individuals have reported skin rashes from handling fresh dill. This is likely due to sensitivities and phytochemicals present in the carrot family. Want to learn more about the benefits of other common herbs? Visit herbnotes.cards and grab a free deck of our top 12 herb notes. You can learn all about herbs like elderberry, chamomile, and more. This has been Herb Notes with me, Sorrel Hartford. Catch you next time.
HerbMentor Radio is a 100% sustainably wildcrafted podcast, written and performed by Mimi Prunella Hernandez and Kimberly Gallagher, with production and editing by me, Rowan Gallagher. Visit HerbMentorRadio.com to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and find out how you can be a part of HerbMentor, a community hub for herbalists that you have to see to believe. HerbMentor Radio is a production of LearningHerbs.com LLC. Thank you so much for listening.